Welcome to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast. If someone in your life has BPD, you know how difficult it can be, and you need to learn how to heal from those toxic relationships. And that's where this show comes in. Expert education, expert knowledge, expert insight, and delivered with compassion and empathy. With your host, counselor and trauma recovery coach, AJ Mahari. To purchase and book sessions with AJ, go to ajmahari.ca. Now your host, AJ Mahari.
A couple things before we start this episode. I have a website for this podcast, and it's at survivingbpdrelationshipbreakup.com. Interactive website. It's a website is its own feed for the podcast and also for my YouTube channel. So if you'd like to get a lot of the videos that aren't in this podcast, you'd like to check those out, you can do that at survivingbpdrelationshipbreakup.com. I would just like to encourage you to please leave a 5-star rating for this podcast if you find it helpful, to help this podcast keep growing and keep reaching more and more people who could benefit from this content. I get a lot of people with BPD rating it at 1 star because, they have all these problems with what I'm saying, and they think it's horrible and disgusting and all that kind of BPD kind of stuff. This podcast website is survivingbpdrelationshipbreakup.com. And now, let's dive into today's episode. This is the second part of my 3-episode series on borderline men. Today's episode is called Borderline Men Unmasked. In the last episode, I looked at the broken BPD man fantasy, the illusion that keeps so many women trapped in unhealthy relationships with borderline men. If you haven't heard that one yet, I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode first. Today, I'm pulling the mask off the borderline man himself. We're diving into 7 powerful realities that you as a woman need to know about men with BPD. From the rage and fragile masculinity to addictions, battering, and the terror of abandonment. And if this episode of the podcast resonates with you, be sure to listen to the third part of this series, as it becomes available in this podcast, The Invisible Borderline Man, Why You Don't See Him Coming. So in this episode, like I said, I'm going behind the mask to look at the realities of men with borderline personality disorder. BPD is often spoken about in the context of women, but men live with it too. And when they do, it often looks different. Instead of collapsing inward into depression, self-harm, or silent suffering, as many women do, but not all, many men with BPD externalize their pain. Doesn't mean there's no male quiet BPDs, though, because there are. But often it comes out as rage, control, addictions, impulsivity, and sometimes violence. If you've been with, loved, or tried desperately to help a borderline man, you already know how confusing, heartbreaking, and sometimes dangerous it can be. So my goal today in this episode is to give you clarity, not demonize, but unmask the hidden forces driving male borderline behavior, generally speaking. Let's walk through 7 realities you need to know about borderline men. Number 1. Emotional volatility. Rage turned outward. Men with BPD often express their emotional storms through anger, rage, and outward aggression. This isn't just, quote, a bad temper, unquote. It's the eruption of abandonment, terror, and shame. A simple disagreement, a partner being late, or even a neutral comment can unleash volcanic reactions. Partners describe this as walking on eggshells, never knowing when a small spark will ignite a firestorm in the borderline male. Where women with BPD may implode with self-harm, men with BPD explode outward, leaving loved ones shaken, fearful, and drained. And of course, I just must add that some women are petulant and outward acting as well. Maybe not with the same power, maybe not in the exact same ways as men, always. There are men who are quiet borderline as well. But again, probably more women than men. Number 2, fragile masculinity and toxic shame. Deep inside, many borderline men carry toxic shame about their identity as men. They may secretly feel like failures, emasculated, or, quote, not good enough, unquote. To cover this, they overcompensate, boasting, dominating, seeking validation through sexual conquest, or trying to control partners. Even neutral feedback, could you do it this way instead, unquote, can be heard as a humiliating attack by a man with BPD. That's why so many borderline men flip from defensiveness to rage so quickly. Their masculinity feels fragile and under constant threat. And third, addictions and impulsivity. Addictions are common in borderline men. Alcohol, drugs, gambling, reckless sex, or risky behaviors are used as escape routes from inner emptiness. These are not just bad habits. They are desperate attempts to numb unbearable feelings of loneliness and rejection, and really the fact that the borderline male, as well as the borderline female, has no sense of self and has a lack of self. Loved ones often first see the addiction and miss the underlying borderline dynamics. Impulsivity also shows up in finances, jobs, and relationships. A man with BPD may walk out on a career overnight, betray a partner impulsively, or put himself in dangerous situations, not because he's calculating, but because he's trying to silence the chaos inside of him. Number 4, relationship chaos and constant struggles. Borderline men crave closeness, but fear it equally as much at the same time. This tends to lead to a cycle of idealizing and devaluing their partners. At first, you may be placed on a pedestal, adored as perfect, but then abandonment terror is triggered. You're suddenly, quote, all bad, unquote. The relationship becomes a battlefield of power struggles, jealousy, accusations, and sudden withdrawal. He may demand constant reassurance, monitor your every move, or accuse you of betrayal, then push you away or threaten to leave. This push-pull cycle is not about you. It's about his fear of abandonment and his inability to regulate closeness or to deal with or cope with abandonment fear. Number 5, undiagnosed and misunderstood. Men with BPD are often misdiagnosed or never diagnosed at all. Their aggression, addictions, and volatility often lead professionals to mislabel them as antisocial, narcissistic, or simply, quote, angry men with substance problems, unquote. This means the true disorder, a borderline personality disorder in men, goes untreated a heck of a lot. These men cycle through rehabs, courtrooms, jails, and broken marriages without anyone naming the real problem. Loved ones are left confused and blaming themselves because no one is calling it what it is in males: borderline personality disorder. Number 6, when borderline men batter. This is the hardest truth. Not all men with BPD are violent, but there is a subgroup where the disorder expresses itself as battering. When abandonment terror collides with splitting, you're all bad, and shame, some men with BPD turn to domestic violence or interpartner violence. This isn't just, quote, anger issues, unquote. It's attachment rage, or the seeking to be attached rage, or the feeling abandoned from pseudo-attachment rage. The twisted logic is, if you hurt me, I will destroy you so you can't leave me. This cycle of violence, followed by apologies, promises, and more explosions, mirrors the internal storm of the borderline man. For partners, this is not just relationship dysfunction, it's abuse, and it's dangerous. And while men may listen to this episode and think, well, women do a lot of dangerous things as well, that's true, but it's different with the borderline man, with IPV and DV being much higher in men with BPD than women, but hard to tell that because probably still are more women with BPD because not enough men are being diagnosed currently, but more and more are. So I think also that we have to realize, you need to realize as a woman, that the damage that a man can do to you really quickly with his bare hands is going to be more than most women with bare hands could do to men. Not saying there's any excuse for females abusing males, not at all. Number 7, attachment terror and abandonment rage. At the root of it all is attachment terror. Well, it's, such a terror of attachment because people with BPD really don't know how to attach, and they have disorganized attachment. Borderline men desperately want connection that feels smothered when they get it. They long for closeness, but are terrified of losing themselves inside of the engulfment of it. When abandonment, real or imagined, is sensed, catastrophic rage can erupt. A delayed text, a look of disinterest, a night out with friends, these can all feel like desertion to the borderline male. What you're seeing isn't about you. It's the echo of childhood wounds playing out in the present from the past. This is why relationships with borderline men are so turbulent. The partner becomes a stand-in for every abandonment, rejection, and betrayal they've ever endured. And for most women with a borderline man, after that initial honeymoon phase, after the idealization and the major split evaluation, you're going to be more and more the object of their parent representation. And for women, if that man has a mother wound, a big mother wound versus a father wound, either way, that's going to be projected out onto you. But if it is a mother wound, they're going to be even more demanding and more dangerous in what they expect from you as, quote, mother, unquote, not who you really are, which is their partner or their wife. And in closing, if you've been with a borderline man, you already know the intensity, the heartbreak, and sometimes the danger. The 7 realities we unmask today: rage, fragile masculinity, addictions, relationship chaos, misdiagnosis, battering, and attachment terror, are not about you failing, not about you being unlovable, and not about you causing his behavior. But equally, there's nothing you can do to change his behavior. There's nothing you can do to get him to hear you. And yet many women are going to recycle these relationships many, many times, on and off, back and forth, trying again to be heard, trying again to be seen, and it's going to be all to no avail, and you're going to increase your suffering. And everything that you're dealing with is really about the unhealed wounds of the borderline man. Clarity is the first step to healing. My hope is that this episode gives you language, perspective, and courage. Or if you already know what I've spoken about here, I hope it just gives you reassurance that if you haven't left yet, you need to get out. And you need to break the trauma bond. And I'm out here to work with people who resonate with me. And may you find peace as you step forward, no longer masked by his storm, but grounded in your own truth. It cannot be emphasized enough that the central theme of lifting the mask on a borderline man has a lot to do with control, brute force, bullying, and potential physical danger for women. And why does the borderline man look different from borderline women? Because they do in many ways, though there can be many similarities as well. But the danger of battering is something that is pretty much the way we define it. It's in the area of men with BPD. And if this episode resonated with you, then please be sure to catch the next episode of this podcast when it's available, because in part 3, I will be going even deeper, and I'll talk about the invisible borderline man, why you don't see him coming, why he often goes undiagnosed, and how his mask of charm and intensity keeps women hooked before the darker realities ever surface. So I will be further unmasking the borderline male in episode 3 of this series, in this podcast on men with BPD for women who are going through this nightmare.
You've been listening to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast with your host, counselor and trauma recovery coach, AJ Mahari. For more or get sessions with AJ, go to ajmahari.ca. See you next time.